Okay, so with Blender, we always see one screen, full screen like this. And there's a way to have multiple viewports happening in here, okay? I will try not to use any keyboard shortcuts so that you could actually see what I'm clicking. However,
Okay.
as we progress through the lessons, I will incorporate the keyboard shortcuts. I will mention them, but I will not use them exclusive, kind of like this one, okay? When I'm moving this cube, I'm going to press G for grab or move, and I can move it around. So instead of pressing a keyboard shortcut, I will actually click the actual tool, the move tool, and as you can see, you get your axis. Do you guys see the red, green, and red arrows?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I grab those arrows, I'm only moving at those direction. Okay, so it makes it easier to kind of understand what I'm doing. Later on, I'm not going to be doing this because you will be aware of this at that point. You'll know this stuff. So what we do, it's actually quite fast. So instead of me grabbing that red arrow or the X axis to move, I will just press GX. G for grab and X axis movement only. Okay? Then I will also do GY, so on and so forth. Okay? So these are the keyboard shortcuts. I'm not going to be using them for now, but expect those things to basically show up in the future, okay? So for now, I'm going to be exclusively using icons and user interface here so you guys can see it. However, there's no escaping the keyboard shortcuts. Do you all have numpads on your keyboard? If you don't have a numpad on your keyboard, you're going to have to use exclusive axis control right here, okay? So if you have a numpad on your keyboard, if you press number 1, it goes to the front. Okay, we're looking at it from the front viewport. Okay, if I press number 3, you're looking at it from a side viewport to be the particular side. Number 7 would be the top viewport. So as you can see, with a click of a button on the numpad, it changes a particular viewing of the screen, okay? We can also do that by clicking your axis right here. So if I click Y, that's your back. Y again, that's the front. X would be right side. X again would be the left side. Okay? Z will be the top. Z again, top, bottom. Okay? So you can also do it here. So you don't really need a numpad. However, it accelerates your work. Okay, simply by just pressing those buttons as opposed to hunting down tiny little buttons. However, we also have to introduce this because a lot of you guys are buying laptops now that has those drawing tablets as screens. So you're actually pressing on your screen as opposed to simply clicking your keyboard to access those, or you're using your mouse. Okay, so both are kind of valid right now. Okay, so let's take a look real quick. So part of the video series that we look at is the navigation. So your middle mouse button, okay, is an important button in Blender. We use this all the time. So we suggest you use a 3-button mouse, okay? So the middle mouse button is also a button. Okay, I mean, it looks like a scroll. So when you actually scroll, it's your zoom, right? It looks like you're zooming. You're not really zooming. You're actually dollying forward and back. And we'll learn those camera terminology later on, okay? It's actually not zooming. We're not changing the focal length here. We're actually going closer to the object and then further away. If you press the middle mouse button, you're orbiting the camera. So there's a big difference here, okay? We are not rotating the cube. The cube is static. It's staying in place. We are actually orbiting it, holding a camera. Okay, so there's a big difference here. The cube is not rotating, folks. It's the camera orbiting the object. Okay, so that's middle click. If I hold down Shift and then middle click combination, do you see the screencast right here? Shift plus middle click, middle mouse. You can actually pan your camera. Panning the camera is basically holding the camera and then moving left and right. Okay, so or up and down, or they call this tilting the camera. Okay, all these movements, you don't need to use the mouse button for this and mouse combination. They're actually here. Okay, do you see the plus and the hand and then the camera icon right here? So if you have the hand tool, if you click and hold that, you can actually do the pan. Okay, right here. If you click zoom and click and drag your mouse, you actually can simulate as if you're using a what do you call this, a scroll mouse button. Okay, and of course the middle click button is for your rotation. Here, if you actually click the camera icon, it doesn't just take you to the camera, you lose that previous viewport. Okay, so you can also simulate repeat those processes here without using your numpad. All right, so that's our navigation. Again, let me repeat: shift and middle mouse, drag, that's your pan. Scroll, of course, will be your dolly forward, aka it's like a fake zoom. Okay, and then middle click drag, middle mouse, you can orbit the camera. Okay, so we could easily do that with the middle mouse. It's a little harder to do it when you emulate your middle mouse button by holding down, I don't remember, what was it? I think it's Option Shift to actually do that. Or what do you call the Alt click in Windows. Okay, so what else here? Transforms. Okay, so transform, I'm going to delete this. Okay, keyboard shortcut to delete is basically delete. Okay, you can also click undo. Okay, so Command Z if you're in Mac, Control Z if you're in Windows. So the basic keyboard shortcut for daily computing are the same. Okay, Command C to copy, Command V to paste, Command X to cut, Command Z to undo if you're on Mac. So if you're in Windows, you simply change Command to Control. That's all. All right. So we're going to use the transform tools here, but let me delete this using the X key. So instead of hitting delete on your keyboard, you can hit X and then it gives you a little confirmation. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do and add an object here. So to add an object, you click add up here and you click mesh and you get one of our pre-made object. Okay. Let's make one, the monkey. All right. Why do we have monkey in Blender? I don't know. Ask those guys in Europe. That's the thing. Sometimes you get a teapot, right? The real reason for this is all this curvature that you can actually use it as a template when you're doing your shader. It's a complex object basically, so it's a lot easier than just using spheres and cubes and whatnot. Okay. So the keyboard shortcut to get add object, instead of clicking here, you can do Shift A, and it's the same thing. So you can see we have the add menu right here. It's the same thing as clicking add over here. So let's add another one. Let's say a plane. Plane is basically a one-sided object. It's a flat quad object. Okay. So by default, you are using your select key up here. Everything is a select. Left click select. Okay. All the objects I made, they go to our outline right here, basically the collection. I don't know if you could see it, but you can see plane right here and then Suzanne, which is the monkey head. So if I select here, it's the same thing as clicking on the screen. Click plane, so on and so forth. Okay, so if I'm in the select tool and then I want to do a transform is simply one of these tools, and these are universal tools. I don't know if you've used Photoshop before. They have transform tools. You know, move, rotate, and scale. Same thing in Premiere, same thing in DaVinci. All programs have it. Here, it's the same thing. Okay, so we have our move, keyboard shortcut G, our rotate tool, keyboard shortcut R, and our scale, keyboard shortcut S. Simply scale is to resize. So let's take a look. Okay, and this one here is your multi-tool. Okay, the multi-tool is all of them at the same time. So let me click on transform first. There it is. It's like arrows, directional where you can move it. If I click on rotation, you get these rings, would be rotation based on the ring or axis. And then we have our scale. So if I grab the circle ring right here, I get what you call a uniform scale. So I get to resize the plane uniformly. What does that mean? It's not distorted. It's one-to-one. Okay, if I scaled, resize a ball, it will be a ball. However, if you grab one of these cubes right here, you are scaling or resizing based on the direction. So if I click the red one, you just resize it this way. You resize it that way. It will not resize up and down because this thing is flat as a paper. So you can't make it any thicker. You have to do something to modify it in order to do that. So I'm going to click undo to reset it back to the way it was. I'm just going to scale it using the white circle here to scale it on both sides. Okay. After that, I'm going to click on my move tool, bring this down so that we have some sort of like a floor for our Suzanne. When you start your Blender screen, whether you like it or not, it comes with one camera and one light. You can also see that here in our collection or the outliner, where you can click on camera and light to select them. Okay, so sometimes it's harder to select things in the screen because there's probably thousands of objects in there. Okay, here if you could actually type it in, let's say CA, it will highlight that particular object, so it's a lot easier to hone it down and actually select it. Okay, you will accumulate stuff here, folks. There'll be hundreds and thousands of objects. Okay, so let's rename our plane to just call it floor. Okay, the best name to rename this, we have our object marker right here where you can actually rename it, but I want you to kind of get used to renaming using your collection. Where it says plane, simply double click that, and then we're going to type in floor and press enter. It changes the name. Okay, and Suzanne, we're just going to call this monkey head. All right, so I want you to get used to this now where you actually are naming your stuff. So we're not going to rename camera and light because we're not going to add more to those. Okay, so the keyboard shortcut to see what the camera is seeing is 0 on your numpad. Okay, or you can click the camera icon here and it changes to that. Watch this as I want to rotate my camera while in camera mode. You see it? I lost the camera view already. Okay, because we're not locked in. So to lock in your camera so you could actually move your camera and rotate your camera, you have to press the letter N, as in numbers. This property window pops up. Okay, keyboard shortcut is N. Okay, if you don't like clicking N, there's a little chevron arrow right here that you can click right there. Okay, and we need to go to view, and there's an option right here where it says lock camera to view. If I put a check mark there, when I click on camera and I rotate, guess what? We're staying in camera. So we're rotating that camera and we're locked in. If you want to get out of camera mode, you can simply click on the camera icon again or press 0 on the numpad and you're out. So as you can see, I have independent rotation of my other camera. This is the user camera. This is the scene camera right here. So if I press 0, I'm in there, press 0, I'm out. Okay? So let's take a look now while we're on camera, what we can see through Blender. And this don't have to be in camera, by the way. All right, we have these 4 spheres up here, part of the UI video of that YouTube. So I strongly suggest you watch those videos. Okay, the first sphere here is wireframe, so you get to see your image, all your objects in wireframe. This is useful so that you could see the back. Okay, and you could actually see inside your objects. The next one is solid mode. You simply, or shaded mode, you simply see your object solid. Okay, there's a button right here to the left of the wireframe. Okay, it's called the X-ray. So if I turn this in, your object will be transparent. So it's kind of like looking at it in transparent shaded mode so you get to see the back. This is quite useful, by the way, when you want to see what's behind an object and not necessarily click on wireframe. Okay, so you could turn that thing on. I'm going to turn it off for the sake of demo. The third one is look depth. So this is Blender's way of showing your object in some sort of pre-made lighting. So this is not reality, folks. Okay, so just to show you this, I'm going to click on 0 to look at what my camera is looking at. Okay, and then I'm going to hit render to show you the real photo that will be produced. All right, look at the difference. Okay, this is reality right here. This is not. So why do we have this look depth? Well, look depth is great if you're still working and you want to see everything in a very well lit environment. So it's a good working space. Okay, and the last one is called EV or viewport shading, render shading. This is render preview. This is reality. Okay, as you can see here, if I do a render image, it's 1-to-1. You see it? Okay, so the fourth one is the real, is the real deal right here. And this is real time, folks. If I select light right here and then move it, okay, it's real time. All right, so those are those things. And what else? Our transform tool, rotate. Say I want to rotate Suzanne, looking up. I can scale. Let's say he saw something in there, she saw something and he got shocked. There you go. We can scale. All right, you notice that I'm scaling and then when I right click mouse it cancels. That's a great feature that all 3D software should use. It used to be exclusive to 3ds Max. Okay, what it is that I can perform a movement and just to see what it looks like, and when I'm done I can right click to cancel it. Because if you don't have the right click cancel, here's what you have to do. You move it and you go like, oh, I'm not happy with that. You have to do Command Z to undo it. So you actually waste time trying to undo your object. Okay, so it's actually faster to right click cancel. Okay, so one last thing, our axis. Quick explanation on this one. All right, so we have X, Y, and Z. X is red, Y is green, Z is blue. Okay, so let's have a show of hands here. How many of you got weirded by this? Why is Z not up like you're used to? All right, you're used to X and Y, isn't it? X is horizontal, left and right. Okay, and then Y is up and down, correct? All right, it's like in Photoshop, right? So why is Y in Blender in and out? X is the same. Z is actually up and down. Okay, the reason for this is we actually operate X, Y on the floor. That's why when you have your GPS, you're actually doing an X and Y coordinate. Okay, so if Y goes up, how come all the cars, they don't fly up? You're still, your Y axis, you're still on the ground. Okay, what it is that Blender is actually looking at X and Y as if it's on a table. The only reason why you think Y goes up and down is someone tilted your screen up. Technically, your screen, okay, is actually looking on the table. You're actually looking on the table, kind of like this. You see X and Y, except they move your screen like so. Hence, Y looks like it's up and down and X is left and right. But in reality, Y only goes forward and back, and then red or X goes left and right, and then blue goes up and down. Okay, so this is real axis coordinate. Okay, so whenever we're dealing with X, Y, and Z, those are basically directions. Okay, so navigation on the screen. So X is always horizontal, which is red. Green is in and out or forward and back. Z is up and down. All right, so that's the orientation. Okay, so we will end the recording here, and then I will save this video so we can move on to our rainbow ring demo, and then you guys can just rewatch this once it's uploaded, and then you can recall a lot of this information back when you get time to do it. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording.